Imagine you're trying to understand the health of a giant, complex organism like the Earth's economy. This organism is constantly changing, with millions of transactions happening every second, from people buying groceries to companies making billion-dollar deals. To get a sense of how this organism is doing, you need a comprehensive way to measure its size, its activity, and its growth over time. You need a way to measure its size, its activity, its growth. This is where economic indicators come into play, and among them, GDP stands out as one of the most crucial. It provides a snapshot of the economic health of a country, giving us insights into how well or poorly the economy is performing. That's where GDP comes in. GDP, or gross domestic product, is a key indicator used by economists and policymakers to gauge the economic performance of a country. It sums up the total value of all goods and services produced within a nation's borders over a specific period, typically a year or a quarter. GDP stands for gross domestic product. This term might sound technical, but it essentially boils down to the economic output of a country. It includes everything from the cars manufactured in factories to the services provided by healthcare professionals. GDP is the total value of all goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific period, usually a year. This includes everything from agricultural products grown by farmers to the latest tech gadgets produced by high-tech companies. It also encompasses services like education, healthcare, and entertainment. It's like a national income statement telling us how much a country is producing and consuming. Just as a company's income statement provides a snapshot of its financial health, GDP offers a comprehensive view of a nation's economic activity. It helps us understand whether the economy is expanding or contracting. Why is GDP so important? For one, it helps governments make informed decisions about economic policies. By analyzing GDP data, policymakers can determine whether to implement measures to stimulate growth or to cool down an overheating economy. It also helps them allocate resources more effectively. For one, it helps governments make informed decisions about economic policies. For instance, if GDP growth is slowing down, the government might decide to cut taxes or increase public spending to boost economic activity. Conversely, if the economy is growing too quickly and causing inflation, they might raise interest rates to cool things down. A high GDP generally indicates a strong economy, while a low or shrinking GDP can signal trouble. When GDP is growing, it usually means businesses are doing well, employment rates are high, and people have more money to spend. On the other hand, a declining GDP can be a sign of economic distress, leading to higher unemployment and lower consumer spending. Businesses use GDP to make investment decisions. Companies look at GDP trends to decide where to expand their operations or invest their capital. A growing GDP suggests a healthy economy with potential for profit, while a shrinking GDP might make businesses more cautious about investing. They want to operate in countries with growing economies where people have money to spend. A higher GDP often correlates with higher consumer confidence and spending power, making it an attractive environment for businesses to thrive and expand. Understanding GDP is essential for anyone interested in the world around them. Whether you're a student, a business professional, or just a curious individual, knowing how GDP works can give you valuable insights into the economic forces that shape our lives. It helps you make sense of the news, understand government policies, and even make better personal financial decisions. Nominal GDP is the most straightforward type of GDP. It measures the value of goods and services using current market prices. It's like taking a snapshot of the economy at a specific moment. However, nominal GDP doesn't tell the whole story. What if prices have been rising rapidly due to inflation? In that case, a rise in nominal GDP might just reflect higher prices, not necessarily more production. To get a more accurate picture of economic growth, we need to look at real GDP. Real GDP takes inflation into account. It measures the value of goods and services using a base year's prices. This allows us to see how much the economy has actually grown, not just how much prices have increased. Real GDP is a more reliable indicator of economic health than nominal GDP because it filters out the distortions caused by inflation. It gives us a clearer picture of changes in production and consumption. By comparing real GDP over time, we can track economic growth and identify trends. While GDP measures the overall size of an economy, It doesn't tell the whole story about the well-being of individuals within that economy. GDP per capita tells us how wealthy the average person in that country is. This measure is obtained by dividing the total GDP by the population size, giving an average economic output per person. It's calculated by dividing GDP by the total population. This simple calculation can provide insights into the economic health of a nation and its citizens. GDP per capita is a useful indicator of living standards. It can reflect the average income and the ability of people to afford basic needs and luxuries. A higher GDP per capita generally means people have more income to spend on goods and services, which can lead to improved living conditions and greater access to amenities, leading to a better quality of life. People can enjoy more leisure activities, better healthcare, and higher quality education. However, it's important to note that GDP per capita doesn't capture everything about well-being. It overlooks the distribution of income among the population. It doesn't account for income inequality, which can be significant in many countries. High GDP per capita can mask the fact that wealth may be concentrated in the hands of a few. Access to education and healthcare, or environmental factors. These elements are crucial for a holistic understanding of well-being and quality of life. Therefore, while GDP per capita is a valuable economic indicator, it should be considered alongside other measures to get a complete picture of individual well-being. Section 5, GDP growth rate, tracking economic progress. The GDP growth rate measures how fast an economy is expanding or contracting. It's calculated as the percentage change in real GDP from one period to the next. A positive GDP growth rate indicates economic expansion, while a negative growth rate signals a recession. Governments and businesses closely monitor GDP growth rates to make informed decisions. For example, a country with a high GDP growth rate might attract more foreign investment, while a country with a shrinking GDP might need to implement stimulative policies. Section 6. Developed and developing economies. Economists often classify countries as either developed or developing, based on their level of economic development. Developed countries, also known as industrialized or high-income countries, have high GDPs per capita, advanced infrastructure, and high living standards. Developing countries, on the other hand, have lower GDPs per capita, less developed infrastructure, and lower living standards. They are often in the process of industrialization and modernization. The distinction between developed and developing countries is not always clear-cut and is often a matter of debate. Section 7. Comparing GDPs, developed versus developing countries. Comparing the GDPs of developed and developing countries highlights the disparities in economic development. GDP, or gross domestic product, is a crucial indicator that reflects the economic health of a country. It measures the total value of all goods and services produced over a specific time period. By comparing GDPs, we can gain insights into the economic capabilities and living standards of different nations. For example, the United States, a developed country, had a nominal GDP of over $26 trillion in 2023. This immense economic output allows the country to invest heavily in various sectors such as technology, healthcare, and education, contributing to a high standard of living for its citizens. In contrast, Bangladesh, a developing country, had a nominal GDP of around $416 billion in the same year. Despite significant progress in recent years, the lower GDP reflects the challenges the country faces in terms of economic development, infrastructure, and public services. This vast difference in GDP translates to significant differences in living standards, access to education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Developed countries typically have more resources to allocate towards these essential services, leading to better outcomes for their populations. On the other hand, developing countries often struggle to provide the same level of services due to limited financial resources. Understanding these disparities is crucial for addressing global economic inequality and promoting sustainable development. By recognizing the economic gaps, international organizations and governments can work together to create policies and initiatives that support economic growth in developing countries. This collaborative effort is essential for building a more equitable and sustainable global economy. Section 8. Limitations of GDP as an indicator. While GDP is a valuable tool for measuring economic activity, it's important to recognize its limitations. GDP doesn't take into account unpaid work such as household chores or volunteer work. It also doesn't factor in environmental degradation or resource depletion. An economy might have a high GDP while simultaneously polluting its rivers and depleting its natural resources. Furthermore, GDP doesn't measure income inequality or social well-being. A country with a high GDP might still have significant poverty and social problems. Section 9. Conclusion. Beyond the numbers. GDP is a powerful tool for understanding economies, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It's essential to consider other factors like income distribution, environmental sustainability, and social well-being when assessing a country's progress. By looking beyond the numbers, we can gain a more holistic understanding of economic development and strive for a future where prosperity is shared by all. As we continue to explore the cosmos, let's remember that true progress lies not just in economic growth, but in the well-being of all people and our planet.